What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about what developers are saying about the Series S. Now, we talked about this, and I know that I try to always start these videos off with kind of like a disclaimer of where I stand on these consoles, because I know I'm subject to hate, or that I'm not being too hard or I'm not being too soft on either of them. So for a video like this, let me make clear that I think the Series S is overall very, very cool. I'm glad that Microsoft is able to do a console like this for the price. I get the reason, right, that this is kind of an entry to gaming, really, for a lot of people, or at least that's the way they're marketing it. One of the worries I've always had about it, that I even expressed multiple times, I've expressed it in live streams, I've expressed it in multiple different ways and multiple different times, is that I'm worried how it's going to affect the quality of games. Is this going to slow down the progress? Is this going to limit how well a game is able to run, or how good a game is able to look, or feel, whatever specs you want to talk about? Is it going to hurt that for games that are across the board? So like Xbox Series X, Series S, and PS5. Is it going to hurt those games? It won't hurt games that are only on Xbox, and it won't hurt games that are only on PlayStation, because normally, those first-party studios, they're more in tuned. They normally make better looking, because generally, third-party games, they have to optimize to the lowest console. And so for an example of next gen, Series S will be that lowest console. So if third parties have to optimize their game for that console, what's that going to do for it? Now, I've been very skeptical on that. I've been pretty worrisome, and the specs came out and people were generally happy. Well, now we've had and this is just 3 different developers, and this is just on PlayStation Universe. I'd be interested to know if more did this, but 3 developers, one from Call of Duty, developer from Infinity Ward, one Dan Weiss, a gameplay programmer from Squanch Games, and also id Software's lead engine programmer. They all spoke about it, and they do not have good things to say. So let's read through what they said. Now, I don't know a lot of the spec stuff, but I'll read them, and then we'll kind of talk about what they said afterwards. So actually, I misspoke. We have 4 of them in all. Axel is another person who I obviously works in the gaming industry. So he says, really bummed about this RAM situation on the Series S. This isn't easy to compensate, and drags down base specs quite a bit for next-gen multi-platform. So right there, he kind of sums that up. RAM increase was already small compared to previous gen. Now it's almost non-existent. RTBVHs also need a lot of mem on top. David Mickner, which is the Call of Duty developer, he says, it really is, but I can't stop thinking about the fact that they're releasing a lower spec console that will serve as a bottleneck. Granted, transition into next gen is always bottlenecked by last gen for a while. Dan Weiss, again, the gameplay programmer of Squanch Games, he didn't pull any punches. I'm not going to use the swear words, but we'll read this. Let's start with the CPU. It's slower clocked, and yeah, it's not much, but it's not zero. Make all the claims in the world about the box being aimed at lower resolution, but that doesn't exactly fly for CPU. You're not going to have things like game code on CPU on its own thread. Now, GPU, on paper, this one makes sense. Have the box aimed at 1440p 60 instead of 2160 60 and cut down the GPU. But let's be perfectly honest. Neither the Series X or PS5 are 4K 60 machines unless we're cutting IQ from last gen. They can, do stuff with 8K 690. id Software, he said, the memory situation is a big issue on the S. The much lower amount of memory and the split memory banks with drastically slower speeds will be a major issue. Aggressively lowering the render resolutions will marginally help, but will not completely counteract the differences. So, again, I'm not tech savvy. I don't know what half that stuff means. But look, I did see somebody else, and this was on a PlayStation side. He was he's a PlayStation guy, but he basically had a visual of Microsoft, and I think it was Brian PlayStation Trophies, and he had the Xbox, and how, yes, it's going to be a more powerful console, but there's a lot more things there that will slow it down. So he kind of had like a goal at the end of the picture, and there were like all these cows or something like blocking the car, so it was slower to reach. Whereas the PlayStation, less stuff like in the way. Actually, a lot of stuff where it's very clear. Now, again, maybe they sacrifice a little bit of power for that, but it's a lot, I don't know, just a lot more clear that way. Now, again, I don't even understand all of that, but this does worry me. I don't know what half the stuff means, but I was just saying for months that I was worried that a lower-powered Xbox console could hurt games, and now we have 4 different developers saying, yeah, this is going to hurt games. That sucks. That's something that, just flat out was a worry of mine. Don't have consoles like, I mean, I get it. I really do. I really do. People, especially in a year like this, people don't have money. People don't have the money. So you could say, okay, PS5 comes out for $500, Xbox Series X comes out for $500, Series S is $300. I mean, that is a great deal for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to buy that. Now, I have seen people say, well, they could just do a refresher Xbox a couple years down the line. Sure, they could. They could do a Series S2 or whatever they want to call it. I mean, it's going to get really confusing, the names eventually, but they could do that. But what about right now? What about the current time? These games that, people were complaining, Assassin's, and this isn't an example, but this is, close. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, people were kind of expecting, some people were expecting basically a next-gen Assassin's Creed, and we didn't get that. I'm not saying that's because of the Series S. I'm just saying that's something that people had expectations on already in November. For a game in November, like the day that the next-gen consoles come out, people were expecting next-gen quality. People next year in 2021 are going to be expecting next-gen quality, and they're not going to get it. And I've been saying that for a while. 2021 is maybe the start of the start of when they're going to start getting games that are designed more with next-gen fully in mind. But for the most part, especially in 2020 and going into 2021, that's not the case. It was mainly made for current gen, and then they're basically optimizing it up for next gen, okay? In 2021, 2022, then we're going to get games that were built from the ground up for next gen. I mean, factually, those games may be held back because of Series S, and that truly sucks. Now, again, is it exclusive games that are getting held back? No, any game that's coming out just on Xbox, just on PlayStation, I think PlayStation, they don't have to worry about it. Xbox, I think they would figure it out. Any Microsoft team, I think we'd be able to figure it out, but it's because they're only working on those consoles. If you're Call of Duty, if you're Battlefield, think about Battlefield 6, all the stuff that we've heard about Battlefield. If you're them, you have to make it for Series S, Series X, PS5, and digital PS5, but they're the same console. So really 3 consoles, okay? You have to make your game work on the Series S, and you're probably not going to have the time to make a series, and that's the thing. That's my worry, and I think some people will say 2 things. One, that, they can just have a refresher Xbox in a couple of years. Well, that doesn't solve the issue of right now. And secondly, they could say, well, game developers can just make more than one version, but you're taking for granted how free of time game developers are. A lot of them are. Now, some of them maybe could fit in there. Okay, we want to make the best possible game on every possible system, so if we're going to make the Series S version, we also want to make an even better version for the Series X and PS5. You will have some developers do that, but again, think about others. Think about the EAs and the Ubisofts, and think about that, right? Are they... So EA, again, Battlefield, they make DICE do 1,000 games a year. Do you really think that EA is going to say, okay, we're going to give you enough time so you can make 2 different versions about? Of course not. Of course not. They're going to say, make the version and make it as good as I guess you can, but you have until this date, and there is no pushing this, by the way. So this is the date. You know what I mean? That's just, again, EA Sports. They only have 9 months to make a game. Do you think they're going to make 2 versions of their game? And now, again, I guess that's stretching it. That's saying that they literally need to make the Series S version and then a separate version for the other 2 consoles. I mean, maybe it's easier than that, but I mean, these developers seem pretty darn mad. They seem upset at the fact that it seems like they're almost going backwards. They were expecting quite a big jump, and they're getting it with Series X and PS5. But then the Series S is saying, well, you have this limit, this very high limit with the other 2 consoles, but because we're here, we're going to lower that by a lot, and you're going to have to work for us, and then you may never reach that. You're not going to reach that top one, so sorry. Again, the only ones that'll reach that are the exclusives. So, I mean, this does it doesn't confirm it, I guess. It's only 4 people. I'd be interested in seeing, but I have seen just on Twitter from other, different people than just these 4. I mean, there are other people talking about how this could be very hurtful for gaming, for, games that are being made on these consoles. So I don't think these are the only 4. I don't think I'm the only one that should be worried about this. I get, if I get hate, I get hate, but ultimately, that's just how it is. Guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Are you guys excited for the Series S? Do you think it's going to be a problem for gaming? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. And thank you all so much for watching. I do a new video on this channel every single day. And so I hope to see you guys for tomorrow's video.